You just got your asses whipped by a bunch of goddamn nerds.
We were recording. Hey, there he is. What shirt you got on there? A little Pac-Man shirt? Wearing a Pac-Man shirt? Hey, wow.
I'm actually a much bigger Miss Pac-Man fan.
Are you, meow?
Yeah, Miss Pac-Man is a lot faster, plus there's the fruit. I like Pac-Man.
Look at you. Look at you, Brian Trevor.
I don't know if this is like a purist thing or not. I'd prefer the console to the tabletop. Actually, I don't even know if they had Miss Pac-Man at the tabletop.
I can't say that I've ever seen it.
I used to go to this Philly cheesesteak place that's not there anymore in Denver or in Lakewood. And as soon as I got there, I would take like just a shitload of quarters and go play Miss Pac-Man while Jill ordered our food. And then she sat at the table by herself and I played Miss Pac-Man.
Were you?
I don't even know I took a shitload of quarters. 1 quarter of Miss Pac-Man lasts forever. Before kids.
Okay, so that was your date. It was basically your wife ordered.
That was date night.
Dude. Wow.
Give me a Philly cheesesteak and some cheese fries, and I'll be at the Miss Pac-Man machine.
You have figured it out.
Yeah. It wasn't even good, Miss Pac. I just liked it. It's a good game.
It is.
Did you play arcade games as a kid? Did you play like?
Yeah, played a little bit.
The Simpsons arcade game was sweet. The Ninja Turtles arcade game was sweet.
NBA Jam.
I remember playing that more on like Super Nintendo or Sega or something than in an arcade.
See, where I come from, Brian, we had to drive a good 30 minutes to find an arcade. So it wasn't like there was one just near. And by the time my town did get an arcade, right there at the Paul Revere's Pizza Shop, I think Sega Genesis had been out for several years. There might actually, I think it was, we're on to PlayStation 2 by then.
I'm sure some Denver people remember, but there used to be a mall in Bear Valley at Sheridan and Dartmouth that is now like a Home Depot and a King Soopers, but it was tiny. It just wasn't that big. And it didn't have an arcade in it. It did have a comic book store that was pretty sweet. And a candy store. I'm not sure there's any freestanding candy stores. But anyways, there was a $1 movie theater. I think it was like when I was little, it was like a 50-cent movie theater, but it had just a bunch of video games in the lobby. So it wasn't really an arcade, but it had like 15 or 20. Afterburner.
Wow, those are good.
It's just sweet games.
Sweet games.
I couldn't play Defender ever on a console or on a arcade, whatever the thing is called, a box. I always had to play that on my Atari.
All right, we ready?
Talk about sports now.
Here we go. Let's talk. Well, no.
The segment on arcade games.
There's a guy that reached out to us that wants to do an episode on competitive gaming.
Yeah.
He's a grad student, I think at Clemson, maybe. I don't know. The dude has his own. It was a game developer. I looked at his LinkedIn profile. Totally legit. So one of these days we'll have to get him on, but we should get started.
Yeah.
Whew, here we go. Okay. Brian, how you doing, buddy?
I'm good. How are you?
Hey,
I'm feeling very Friday.
Are you feeling Friday? What's that mean?
Summer means nothing, but I had to work all week.
Oh yeah,
so now Friday.
First week back?
Yeah.
First week back for you, Brian?
Yeah, it was the first week back. Full week of work. Well, that's not true. I'm not working today. And I didn't work Monday. A full 3-day work week. Exhausted.
You must be exhausted.
I really did. Like I'll admit that, being a professor is sweet sometimes. You kind of, do whatever you feel like at certain times. But I had like 9 meetings yesterday. It was grueling.
Yeah, that does suck. Meetings suck, everybody. We're all adults here. We understand meetings. Not fun. Hey, before we jump into a rundown of wonderful issues, I want to ask folks, if you get us on your Apple Podcasts, can you go in and leave us a review? I was scanning through reviews today. We have a good number of reviews, but compared to the people who actually consume our content, which we are upwards of 1,000 now, easily, unique consumers across either the podcast, the Instagram video, or the YouTube video. Can you just go to Apple Podcasts, leave us a review? A 5-star review would be awesome. Even a comment would be better. But it just helps us. It helps us get recognized on Apple Podcasts lists of podcasts you might like. And if you're listening to us, you probably enjoy that platform. And I don't mean Apple Podcasts. I mean the actual art of podcasting, because this is completely artistic. Right, we are creating wonderful art. So there's that. And then, of course, you can follow us on the social medias. We are on Facebook. Just go to facebook.com/sportsnerds. And then we're on the Twitter @_sportsnerds. And then Instagram, sports.nerds. So your support across those various social media platforms would be much appreciated. We have some good content up there. I think the most engagement we get tends to be from Facebook, but for sure the most creative stuff we get is on Instagram. And along those same lines, the folks who are doing some work for me on the side, I have some interns who are part of my actual side hustle, who are going to start creating some content for us and posting it up to Instagram. So that should be interesting and fun. But we would love to find you or see you active with and engaging with us on the social medias. And then on YouTube, just search, Brian, you said you could search for Sports Nerds on YouTube and we're showing up there.
Yeah, just type in Sports Nerds and look for our heads.
Okay. All right,
it's
sweet.
Yellow background.
Sweet. There we are. This is happening, right? Whatever we are doing is happening. And one more time, just want to say thank you to everybody who has supported us from day one, from day 100, from last week. Really, really, truly appreciate it. I think this is a long game for Brian and I, and we're starting to actually see some results. So we appreciate it. Do you have any thank yous you want to give out?
Yeah.
Pretend you're receiving your Tony Award?
You caught me off guard. I was looking at Nike stock. Yeah, listen to the podcast. Thanks. We have lots of friends out there who like to listen. So, thanks for listening.
Keep that Nike stock window open.
No, I know. For sure.
All right, let's jump into we obviously want to talk about the Kaepernick and the Nike thing, but let's save that for the bulk of the show. I texted you this morning and I said, can I make a comment about the Nationals just being terrible? And I want to make that comment now. I watched the back half of the game against the Cubs, and I don't understand how that team is terrible. But I think I've told you this before. We're going to look back in 15 years and say, how did that team never make a World Series? But they're not going to. They are fucking terrible. Your thoughts? Go ahead.
I think we have to go back and look at who we picked to make the playoffs, and I think we both had the Nationals winning the East. The crazier part about that is it's not like there's other good teams in the East who are beating them. The Phillies aren't any good, right? The Braves really aren't any good. They both have. What do they have, like 76 or 77 wins? They're teams that would be outside looking in for playoff spots. I mean, honestly, in the AL they wouldn't have a chance. And I don't know why they're losing games with the pitching talent they have, obviously, with Bryce Harper. And listen, it sounds like that guy's probably on the way out. So that I think is a team that people will look back on. And there's lots of teams like this where you're like, man, you should have won a championship or two, and instead just kind of didn't do anything with it.
You could tell that guy is extremely frustrated. Wow, he's not happy. It's just very angry young man. But why wouldn't you be? Completely underperforming. Max Scherzer, wow, one of the most dominant pitchers we've seen in the last 10 years, and when it comes to postseason play, not going to have a lot to show for it. So I would be extremely frustrated. There have to be guys on there who are extremely frustrated. But I don't know, what do you expect from, bringing Dusty Baker in for too many years, perhaps to run your team, to manage your pitching staff. And then you bring in, let's see, who did they have last year? Another Cubs cast off. And I can't think, who is Dave Martinez their coach now? Can you think?
I don't even know.
Anyhow, yeah. So there's the Nationals. What a shit show! What a shit show! I'm gonna pass the next story off to you because it's funny. Jalen Ramsey. You want to make some comments about that while I'm setting up our graphics here?
Yeah.
Why don't you go ahead, and I'm quite interested in talking about this.
Yeah, so Jalen Ramsey, who's a defensive back, a cornerback for the Jacksonville Jags, so apparently he's outspoken. Honestly, this guy was not on my radar. I didn't hear anything about him. I didn't know anything about him. But I guess he says crazy stuff all the time. He got suspended for criticizing criticizing officials or for talking crap about somebody. He's called out a bunch of quarterbacks in the league and called them trash. He's called out a bunch of other players, Danny Amendola and Rob Gronkowski. Apparently he likes to talk and run his mouth. And he sat down with some reporter and said that if he trained for 6 months, he could make it in the NHL, even though he's never ice skated before, doesn't know how to ice skate or something like that. And I don't even know how to take it. I don't know if he was trying to be funny or if he's, being serious or what this is supposed to be. NHL players are taking it seriously. They don't think it's funny. They think it's an insult to their sport. And some people have even fired back and said that, that they'd be more likely to make it in the NFL than he would to make it in the NHL. And I have no idea how true it is. But it just reminds me of how often we have these sorts of weird conversations like, would LeBron be able to be a tight end in the NFL instantly? Michael Jordan obviously tried to play baseball. Usain Bolt was playing for like an Australian soccer team. He played in a real game the other day and like just looked like a drunk baby giraffe. No offense. Just like the dude can run fast in a straight line, but he had a couple open goal scoring opportunities that I would have put in.
And do they still have that drunk baby giraffe at the Flint Zoo?
I have no idea. I'm living in a different place, not at my zoo. We just got like a new flamingo or something. So I don't know. I don't know what you make of this. I think it's really easy to sit on the couch and think that the difference between professional athletes and high-level amateurs is really tiny, or to think that, if you had just dedicated yourself to playing football at a young age, you would have made it too. And I don't think that's true. I don't think people understand the degree to which being a professional athlete is part of it is winning the genetic lottery, right?
Yeah.
If you're shorter than 5'10", your chance of making it in any mainstream professional sport is like 1 in a million.
Do you think that we won the genetic lottery? Do you think we won the genetic lottery?
Yeah, obviously, I'm at the top of the bell curve genetic lottery wise. No, and the other part of that is sort of the nurturing that you got, right? Did you have your talent identified, your aptitude identified? Was it cultivated? Did you did you have resources that allowed you to play those sports? This dude's not making the NHL in 6 months. He's not making the NHL in this lifetime, because the skill sets, athletes in hockey and athletes in football are both athletes. They're both athletic, but it's not the same thing. It's not even kind of the same thing. I think that's why, how many two-sport athletes can you name that are legit memorable two-sport? Bo Jackson, Prime Time, Deion Sanders, like there aren't that many of them, right? There's not even that many two-sport athletes at the college level anymore, but in pros, in the history of professional sports, we just haven't had two-sport athletes. I don't know. These conversations are always, I don't know what they're supposed to be, marketing gimmicks, if this guy is just trying to promote his brand, if talking heads like to have these weird debates just because it gets people engaged in ridiculous hypotheticals. Like you and I aren't going to have a conversation about if this dude can play in the NFL, but I think we can have a conversation about why do we even talk about this sort of nonsense.
I think he's just kind of having fun. There's Deadspin broke it down.
But even if he's having fun, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
Other times we have these conversations, people are not having fun, they're being serious.
Oh yeah.
The LeBron could be a tight end conversations are not people having fun.
Oh no. So you're talking about like media commentators, sports commentators making these comments and not necessarily the athletes themselves.
Yeah. Jordan is the GOAT, undeniably, to all you people out there who think someone else is the best basketball player ever. And he was a bad minor league baseball player.
Yeah, he was.
It was almost hard to watch. That part of Space Jam, it's so sad. I know that's fake, but you know that part I'm talking about when he's playing for the White Sox? Anybody? Space Jam?
I remember it well. I do.
All the guys
I watched Space Jam last week.
It's a good-looking strikeout, man. When I strike out, it looks ugly. It's a good-looking. It's depressing to watch that.
It is.
A LeBron remake of Space Jam, I would be all about. By the way,
dude, it'd be great. But what are these people supposed to talk about in the middle of July or August? This is when these dumbass conversations get had. So, but can I real quick? This is a funny. This is a funny quote from Nathan McKinnon, who's actually an Avalanche hockey player.
Yeah,
I think it's awesome. I'd like to see him skate. I think it would be pretty funny. He wouldn't be able to stand up. I think he just likes to talk. Whatever. It's good for the NFL for someone to go out and talk like that. It brings a lot of attention. If it happened in hockey, it would make the sport a little more popular too, and we take it. I think that's great, right? Like. That's a good quote. It's a good quote. That's a dude who's not taking this so seriously. Some of these dudes get super pissed off.
They were pissed, dude.
Oh, my God. Sabres center Jack Eichel says it's insulting to our league. Blues winger Vladimir Tarasenko says it declasses our sport. Like, dude, just chill out. My God, the guy's having some fun. And right here's the thing. Look, Jalen Ramsey is a noted shit talker. The guy that's what he does, right? He's like Gary Payton. Like the guy just likes to talk shit. So I love it. Right? It's fun.
It takes aim at hockey, I guess.
Yeah, it takes aim at hockey. Just like sports are sports, and at the end of the day, right?
Yeah, but listen, you're right. I agree with everything you just said. But there are people who think, they're Uncle Rico from Napoleon Dynamite, right? Like the only reason I'm not an NFL quarterback right now is because coach wouldn't put me in the fourth quarter or whatever. No, that's not true. If you were a backup quarterback in high school, you're not making the NHL. Now someone's going to tweet at us that there is, in fact, backup high school quarterbacks who made the NFL. But you take my point. You understand what I'm saying.
Hey, Tom Brady was backup quarterback in Michigan.
I'm not being literal. This is a good time to remind people that if you're ever feeling sad, you should go look at Tom Brady's picture from the combine because it is hilarious.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. It makes me feel better about my body.
It's not even his body. It's like his face and his body language. Yeah. It's the best picture ever.
Yep. Whew.
I'm going to look at it right now. Yep, there it is.
You feeling better about yourself?
His arms are down. He just looks so pissed off. He had no idea he was going to have to do an underwear pick.
He's a grumpy guy, and I'm sure that he embellished it.
If I could go back and tell, whatever year that was, combine Tom Brady, how the future shakes out, I think he'd have a different look on his face.
You get 2 women.
You're a billionaire. That is.
Do you think he's cheating? By the way, do you think
funny picture at football
on something?
At first, I thought you were asking like if he was being faithful to his wife, and I was like, I honestly have no idea. Cheating at football? No, he's not cheating at football.
Okay.
What do you think? Do you think he's cheating at football?
I don't know. I mean, do you think he just? Does he really have a team, a crew around him who have mastered science so well that he's able to perform at this level? Not necessarily physically, but mentally.
You're asking if he's like Ivan Drago from Rocky IV or whatever?
And I kind of envision him.
He's like more machine than a man.
Yeah, I kind of see that happening. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm being a turd. But Brian,
this is the time to like relish Tom Brady because he clearly can't do it for that much longer.
Yeah.
I think we've gotten off topic.
Well, I've been putting off having the conversation that we have to have because we have a lot of people. We've got several people watching us and on our live stream, and
they're enjoying this. And if we start talking,
they're enjoying this, and then we're going to end up talking about perhaps the most polarizing issue in sports, arguably over the last.
Let's do the other fun one then first.
What's your fun one? Josh Donaldson being offered a shitload of money, then turning it down. Did you read that story?
No.
Yeah. Apparently, before he was traded at some point earlier in the year. No, it was last year. Sorry, he was offered a contract extension with the Blue Jays, upwards of $25 million a year, and
crazy. Anyways,
turned it down. I guess expecting that he was going to outperform that contract. The specificity of it all is tough to parse through, but
they're denying this though.
Yeah, I know.
His agent is denying that this offer existed.
Yeah, but apparently this agent is also the agent for other players who are old and have turned down money. Is that what I read there? So I liked the commentary on the commentary, which is basically, is this just the reporter getting bad information, or is this the agent covering his own ass because he keeps turning down these massive contracts for guys who are at the time in their life where they would love to have these massive contracts?
Yeah, I don't think he would have gotten that contract last year though. Wasn't he already bad by that point?
No, he put up some numbers last year. I mean, in our fantasy league, he was.
I
think it was a projected.
No, that's. I thought it was. Hold on. Oh, actually, he was good last year.
Yeah, he was for sure.
I thought he had a down year. Maybe that's just this year that I was thinking of. Actually, he was not even really down this year. Maybe that money is okay. Maybe 27 is okay.
Yeah, he's not having a down year. He's just been hurt.
I thought the first year he got to Toronto, he wasn't that good. But even that's not true. I'm just misremembering. I apologize. Maybe you are worth 25 million.
Misremember. That's not a word.
He won the MVP. That's a word. Misremembered.
Brought to the brought to our lexicon by Roger Clemens. Didn't he say that? I misremembered. Look it up. All right.
Misremember. It's a word. Past tense. Misremembered. Past participle. Misremembered. It's a word.
Here we go. We're going to do this. Let's just jump in. Something happened this week, Brian. Nike ran an ad, and that ad was very controversial. Let's see, Sunday, I think the print ad came out.
Yeah.
And
then it aired for the first time last night during Thursday Night Football, right?
Yeah. So Colin Kaepernick, Nike partnering as social justice supporters. We'll leave it at that. I'm not going to say just social justice warrior because that's obviously a loaded term. And we fall on the wrong side of that demarcation. But the backlash against these ads, which are basically, Kaepernick being the face of protest, being the face of a movement against all that is wrong, not just in the NFL, but I guess social inequality as a whole, especially when it comes to race. It's the same stuff that we've heard now for 2 years. It was 2 years ago that he took a knee. It was 2 years ago that we began seeing these protests. But now Nike has packaged that into an ad campaign. And I'm going to be totally forward. Tuesday night, after seeing, going through Twitter, seeing people's reactions to this ad, it was depressing because we just are unable to have a meaningful conversation about race in this country.
I didn't see their reactions. I was busy burning all of my Nike stuff.
You were burning your Nike shoes. Yeah. It just reinforces.
That was a joke if that wasn't clear.
I know. And I want to.
Nikes fit my feet so well.
You can't. They'd
have to do something. They'd have to do something really bad. No, I'm with you. It doesn't make any sense. I don't understand it.
What part doesn't make sense to you? I guess. Okay. There are various angles that we could take on this. I read a really good op-ed yesterday about how Nike is in a lot of ways just capitalizing on turmoil. And I don't know. You would have to think that was a conversation that was being had, right?
Yeah.
They're trying to be on the right side of history. I totally get that, but there has to be somebody.
Business.
Exactly. Sure. So I guess there's my summarization of my experience with this.
I think summarization is not a word.
Oh, look it up. And I'd like to hear from you because you are
summary, right?
You're the more eloquent one. Go ahead.
I think it might actually be a word. I don't know. I guess people's issue with this, Donald Trump's really pissed about it, is just, that they think that the kneeling is a problem and that Colin Kaepernick is sort of the source of the kneeling, even though that's kind of true, but also sort of what the kneeling became when it got bigger and Trump actually got involved. It kind of changed, which we've talked about on the podcast. So I guess people are upset because Nike's weighing in and sort of taking Kaepernick's side or something like that. On the other hand, it seems to be totally their prerogative that they can choose to endorse whoever they want. And you sort of alluded to this before that this on the one hand could be Nike's attempt at being on the right side of history / trying to make some money. But we know from Nike's past, this is something that they're not afraid to do. A lot of people, Jamel Hill, for example, on Twitter, already made the point that Nike has been willing to wade into controversial waters to do something that they think is the right business move or to make a political statement. So a good example of this is when Air Jordans first came out, right? The first Jordans, they were red and white with a little bit of black, if you remember, or maybe just red and white, but it had a lot of red, and Jordan wore them for a couple games. And then the NFL, or NBA rather, said that he couldn't wear those shoes and was going to get fined every time he did it. And Nike sort of took that up, right? And said part of the ad campaign was these things are banned. They use that as like this forbidden fruit kind of thing, and it made them more popular. And they also, at least to some degree, kind of took on whether or not it was okay for the NBA to regulate people's shoes, or what are the reasons that they're taking a stand against Jordan and the shoes that he chose to wear. So I think you're right. I think to purely call this, Nike having just these altruistic, motivations is unfair. I think they're definitely in it for business. People have also rightly pointed out that Nike has problems with the way that they source their shoes, where the production happens, violating labor laws and labor norms and that sort of stuff. And I think that's still true today. So I don't want to hold Nike up on this pedestal, but it certainly seems fine with me if they want to run this ad. And I guess you can go back and listen to the first Kaepernick podcast. I was surprised that people were mad that he was kneeling, and I'm surprised that people are burning their Nikes in response to this. One more quick point too, and then I'll go back to you here on this question of whether or not it was a good business move. On the day that the ad comes out, right, that we know it's going to happen, Nike stock slips a little bit from like $82 a share to $80 a share, and people are convinced, just like with Keurig and Harley Davidson and other brands that people on the right have tried to kill, that are still there, by the way, that it was going to kill Nike. On that first day, they said experts were saying that Nike got $48 billion in like free publicity out of it, the majority of which was positive, like 2/3 of it was positive publicity. So they're going to make money. And truthfully, the stock dipped $2. It's back up. It's regained half of that already. And if you go and look at Nike stock, not over the last 4 days where the drop looks really big, or the last 5 days, but rather over the last year, their stock is up 28% over the last year. It's up, $30 almost since January. So the little $2 drop really doesn't mean anything, right? I think I'm no financial wizard, but who's the weird guy on CNBC with all the horns and stuff and buy? Yeah, that dude is like, you should buy Nike stock. It's going to dip a little bit, and then buy it because it's going to go up. So I don't know. I don't think the protest is really going to do all that much.
This is all this does, though, is it rekindles everything that makes people angry about social protest. Like not social protest, doesn't make sense. Protest, especially protesting the flag, right? I mean, all of the burning of socks, the cutting of socks, the burning of shoes, it depresses me when I see this kind of shit, because it reminds me that we have an inability to have a conversation about this thing in our country, right? So there's a few things I want to lay out, and then you can argue against me or count, respond. First and foremost, I was listening to a podcast this week, the Gary V audio experience. Gary Vaynerchuk's a social media guru and marketing. He owns a media marketing company. Anyhow, he's from Belarus, and this is a dude who never says anything political. And he came out and said, having grown up in the Soviet Union, you can value the worth of protest, whether or not you agree with that protest. The ability to actually have a say, the ability to be public about it without being thrown in jail, is something that should never be taken away in a free society such as ours, right? A democratic society. So if you look at it that way, right?
But does that need to include the burning of shoes? Because I guess if you want to burn your shoes, you can.
Exactly.
I guess that's protest. Burn your shoes.
Exactly.
My point is just that it's not going to work.
It's not going to work. Okay.
Going after Nike and Harley is insane. Why don't you also go after, baseball and apple pie? Good luck.
It's just,
Keurig, maybe. That doesn't sound all that American.
These not just the logos, right? But these symbols, the symbol of the flag, like they over time, we've just loaded them up with all of this value that can do a lot of damage. Like for some reason, kneeling or not standing for the flag now makes you un-American. 15, 20 years ago, how many years ago are we talking about here? We're talking about, 20 years ago, players didn't even leave the locker room for the national anthem. Protest wasn't a thing because it couldn't have been a thing, right? When we had Butterworth on, we talked about the same kind of stuff. All of this is so, I guess it's a microcosm of the dysfunction and the inability to argue or to converse in productive ways that really defines this contemporary moment. To me, there's like, that's all this is, right? That's all.
No,
this
and
is. And another one more
I think
thing.
it's a really good point.
One more thing, right? They call the liberal snowflake, right? The liberal snowflake, the people who get upset about social justice shit and all of this. To me, what the fuck is burning your shoes and cutting your socks? Are you not a snowflake as well? Is that a conservative snowflake?
Yeah.
How idiotic and ironic and just pointless is that? I just don't. Oh my god. Like,
no, and that
story
sort
now,
of stuff like that. You're right about that. That there's sort of hypocrisy in the name calling, and the problem with that is that it's true on both sides, right? Like, yeah, both sides are overly sensitive sometimes. Both sides can catch the other side being overly sensitive, and I think it goes back to what you were saying before, that's not productive. I think the point that you made that's really really good is the one that this is us having. I think I kind of said this before, but I didn't really hammer the point home like you did. This is the same conversation that we started a year and a half ago, and we were just refused to have the conversation, right? All we're doing is lobbing these ridiculous generalizations at these different sides are, right? Oh, you're unpatriotic. Oh, you hate free speech, right? We need to be a little bit less over general in this debate and actually sort of engage, right? Try and understand, why do you feel like this is not patriotic? We've said this before. If you just kind of sit down and listen to the people who have knelt at football games, they're not protesting the country. They're not protesting the military, right? Just listen to what it is that they're saying. And we've had that conversation, but I'm not saying one side needs to listen. I'm saying both sides need to listen, because this is an extension of a non-conversation that's been happening for a year and a half. And this podcast is already political enough, but obviously this is just a manifestation of other crap that's going on right now too. The fight over Kavanaugh, and the Supreme Court nomination, the Russia investigation, all of this stuff, the immigration debates, are people kind of going back to their corner and strapping in for just a really long fight where there's no real engagement that's going to happen, and nothing's going to change. Like, you need to,
like, the larger ramifications of this like for a democracy are just significant. And when I saw last week, actually it wasn't last week, it was earlier this week, I don't know if you happened to see Trump's comments about banning protesting, like that.
That was yesterday or 2 days ago. Just happened. Yeah. There's
a president of arguably, right, the pinnacle of, I don't know, never mind. I don't what's considered the best country in the world.
No, I understand what you're saying, right? Yeah.
You and I are Americans. We love our country, right? Obviously. But we have a president who said that protesters and protesting should not be allowed. That's fucked, dude. That's seriously fucked. For a guy who will actually, he would try to do that. He would try to do that.
I don't disagree with what you're saying, but the bigger problem is that it's just like the snowflake thing. You can't make the argument that protesters who you disagree with ought to be banned, but then at the same time be like, you should protest Nike by filming yourself burning your. Those are both protests, right? Like, the premise of free speech, the principle of free speech, is one that says that you should be able to express your opinions without fear of anyone, without the government coming after you, primarily, right? But principally, the idea is you should be able to kind of do what you want to do and say what you want to say within reason. But it's not like the principle is you should be able to say what you want to say so long as it fits within this box of acceptability. The principle of free speech is we're not going to say what is acceptable speech, that everything is free speech so long as it doesn't, interfere with somebody else's rights, or it doesn't incite violence, or it's not hate speech, or any of these other sorts of things. The problem with what you just described with Trump is that he's not really saying that protesters should be banned, that in general, he's saying these particular protesters ought to be banned because I disagree with what they're saying. I disagree with, the type of protest, or the object of their protest, or their method of protest, right? It's the ideology that he objects to, not the protesting in and of itself. So yeah, no, I'm with you.
No, it's the same in a lot of ways. It's the same argument of by those who are pissed off. I saw somebody had said, first, what the hell? These protesters ruined my ability to watch the NFL, so I don't watch the NFL, and now they've taken away my favorite shoe or some bullshit like that. And like, it's the argument, like, take politics out of sports. And you and I have talked at length about this with a dude who knows more about it than you and I combined, Mike Butterworth. Like, it's just it's the kind of politics that you don't agree with that pisses you off. But like fucking 9/11 changed just everything in terms of politics and sports and patriotism in sports and all of that. If you go back 30 years, that relationship doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And people aren't up in arms about it. But now, because the relationship looks different than it did on whatever, September, what was the first game? 18th, 25th, something, 2001, you get upset about it. It's just, and then to not be able to have a conversation about what makes you upset or have a conversation with somebody from the other side because you just don't want to listen to them. It's more than angering, right? It's more than upsetting, Brian. I think it becomes a serious problem in terms of the future of this country. I think things aren't looking bright. And this is our job is not on the show to make bold claims about what things are going to happen down the road. Yeah. But I just did, and I'm really I'm worried about it because I'm not seeing shit changing as we move into November, no matter which side of the aisle you're on, right? What's going on is really, really problematic. And this is just an example of it.
Yeah. I have to say this one thing just because I saw it as I was kind of looking at stuff just now while we were talking. A mutual friend of ours, I guess I won't say his name, but Zach, posted on Facebook something I think is pretty funny. Kaepernick has been under contract with Nike since 2011.
Oh,
So he was under contract 2 weeks ago. He was under contract a year ago. They've been paying him that entire time. Why the freak out now? I mean, he restructured that deal and there's a new ad campaign, but they've always been giving him money. Do you see my point? Do you see Zach's point?
Yeah. I mean, it's not
like what changed.
Yeah,
I guess more money. I don't know.
Yeah,
I think it's an interesting point.
What's funny is
maybe it speaks to the issue here, which is that like the rage is being cultivated, and I want to choose my words here, but like unreflexively. Think about it.
It's all outward. It's not inward. It's just
both that it's outward, but also that there's a sense in which it's like, again, burn your shoes.
Dude, it's a purging.
If you want to burn your shoes,
right?
burn your shoes.
Dan's down the hallway. Bring him in, right? But this is a Burkean rhetorical device, right? You're purging all of the stuff that makes you feel bad about yourself because you don't want to take it in, right? You're scapegoating or just transcending, right? But it's certainly not mortification. There's no guilt, right? Being taken on and processed through one's own body, mind, mental capacity. Sorry, I cut you off.
No. No, you're good. I don't know.
I don't know.
My one and only take on this is nothing new has happened. It's the same conversation we were having. Seriously, how long ago? A year and a half ago? When did Kaepernick first do this?
2 years ago.
I mean, it was forever ago. It's this is the same conversation. We have not moved forward in this debate about kneeling. And what's interesting is it's not like Kaepernick is still kneeling. He's not in the NFL. Did any players kneel last night?
Hey, why?
If they did, they didn't show it because I watched it. Boys to Men sang the national anthem, which was kind of cool, but also kind of weird. No, you should go watch it. It was bizarre. I mean, they sounded cool.
Like this ad ran 2 days ago, I think. Like
Nike the print ad, yeah.
No, but the actual ad, you can watch the commercial. I saw the whole thing.
Oh, okay.
And LeBron's in it. We've got a child wrestler with no legs. We've got
a female football player from just down the road from me, from Grand Blanc. Shout out linebacker, homecoming queen.
Like what? I mean, is this dude just an easy target? I mean, there are other beloved people in communities around this country who are part of this ad campaign, who stand or kneel, right? with Kaepernick and with these other players. I mean, what the fuck's going to happen now? Is this female football player that you're talking about? Is she going to be, ran out of town? Are we there yet? I don't know.
No, yeah, exactly. No, I think the point you make is a valid one, which is LeBron has done everything to support Kaepernick, short of actually taking a knee himself. Right? He's worn, the "I can't breathe" and "hands up, don't shoot" shirts and all of that stuff. He's been as vocal as he possibly can. He's gotten the ire from newscasters on the right, Laura Ingraham most notably. But for some reason, you're right, they're not going after him for this. There's something about Kaepernick, and I mean this with no disrespect, that he's not a megastar, right? So therefore you can go after him. But you would never, ever, ever go after like LeBron. He's too big or something like that, which is kind of an interesting metaphor, because I'm surprised these people actually think they're going to topple, Nike. It's not the most important thing. I mean, it doesn't matter if they do or they don't, I suppose. It's just funny that they think they will. Like I said before, it's a mega company. It's an institution whose stock is up, 25% over the course of the year still.
This is not a diss against the military, against the country. It's just some people who are leveraging a platform, right? Not Nike. I'm talking about those in the Nike commercial. Leveraging a platform in order to be heard. I mean, every time this story comes out, every time over the last 2 years that we've talked about it, I think I brought up Franz Fanon's The Wretched of the Earth, right? Like, if you want something to read that's accessible, that gets close to what Brian and I do and the shit that we read and consume, go buy that book, because it's all about taking advantage of the tools that you have in order to not like overpower your persecutors, right? But to try to level the playing field a little bit. And the thing is, what Kaepernick is doing and what these other athletes are doing is the stuff that we have to do on a daily basis in our jobs, right? In our relationships with our families, with our friends, and all of this. It just looks different because we've got an American flag superimposed on the entire conversation. And people can't translate that experience into their own. Does that make sense to you?
It does. Yeah.
I felt really smart just now.
No, it does make sense. No, and listen, I'm certain there are people listening right now, some of whom are like, screw you, you're wrong. You shouldn't kneel during the national anthem. And probably some people that are like, my whole both sides need to chill out sort of thing is not fair because people on the left or on the right side of this debate or whatever. And my sincerest hope is, truthfully, if you hate what I said or what Sam said, honestly, go have a conversation with somebody who disagrees with you about this, and don't go out there and have a fight or punch them or scream at them. I mean, sit down and have a conversation.
Talk to us.
Tell me why you think what you think. Because truthfully, I'm no joke having to Google why are people pissed at Nike, and all I can understand is, well, Nike says thumbs up to Kaepernick, and Kaepernick kneels during the national anthem, and kneeling during the national anthem is never, ever, ever, ever an acceptable form of protest. All right.
Hey, we also have a privilege to be able to have this conversation because we're not fucking famous, right? Like, that's the thing. People want to be famous. You got to be an actor, an actress, an athlete, politician. But the microscope that you're under, once you get there, it can destroy you. And you welcome all this unwanted criticism, right? Or no, you don't welcome it, right? The unwelcome criticism, excuse me.
Yeah.
And
it's not
like, I thought about, like, dude, Jordan getting persecuted in the late 80s for not standing up against for black issues against GOP politicians, saying, they buy shoes too, right? Like, oh, and now 30 years later, the dude is beloved by everybody. It's just, man, have some fucking perspective.
No, this issue has been weaponized to the degree that having a meaningful conversation about it is impossible. And the reactions are going to get more intense and more intense and more intense, and it's being stoked, by people who've got influence, and it's not good. It's not productive.
All right, everybody.
If it's just gonna get worse, I mean, that's I don't know. Something's got to change.
Yeah,
it's not eloquent at all. Hopefully, something different happens because this ain't good.
No. I think we've exerted a hell of a lot of energy over the last 40 minutes, folks. If you want to engage with us in this conversation, we are all over social media. All right, so Instagram sports.nerds, Twitter @_sportsnerds, Facebook, facebook.com/sportsnerds. You can email us. We are sportsnerds@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. I hope we hope that you learned something from this, that your perspective was deepened by this conversation, because this isn't going away, Brian. I mean, I don't think it's not going away, right? Let's not expect this. Like, there's nothing happening that makes me think that things are going to get better anytime soon. I'm not seeing it.
No.
So, I mean, all you got in this world, man, are your friends and your family. You got to care for other people. You really, really do. Empathy is a good thing. Not sympathy, empathy. All right. Do you have any closing comments you would like to make, since we just ruined each other's Fridays?
NFL game was boring last night.
Guess who didn't watch? This guy.
Oh, conscientious objector.
Protest.
Serena is playing in the finals of the U.S. Open on Saturday.
Yeah.
It was almost two Americans.
Who's in
the men's semifinals today, I think.
Okay.
I think there's an American in it.
Michigan has a game they can win.
I'm biding my time. Keep talking shit about Michigan on Facebook and Twitter, and we'll see what happens. I noticed very quickly when there's no Iowa Michigan this year, right? No, Iowa in the Big Ten title game. Get your fucking popcorn ready. Well, before you make that prediction, why don't you focus on Wisconsin?
Focus, dude. They're there. They're right here in the old noggin.
You got to focus on winning the Hawks eye or whatever it is, the corn bowl. Yeah,
it rolls off the tongue better. Oh, by the way, shout out to our beloved friends over at Sukup Manufacturing, Tim Dwight and Sage Rosenfels. Tomorrow, actually, this will air today. I'll put this up today. They'll be doing the game build on the, what did Tim say? South side of Kinnick. So, because they're doing construction on the north side. So if you're in Iowa City tomorrow, look for our faces, because I sent Tim and Sage and the Sukup folks some koozies, and they're supposed to be using them. Did I tell you that? They're going to be using them.
No, that's cool though.
Yeah. So I actually somebody posted on Instagram yesterday. I got to save the picture, but Sukup's director of marketing, she actually has hers packed already. She's ready to go. Yeah, so it's going to be awesome.
I have to clarify my mistake just really quickly. John Isner lost in the quarterfinals to Del Potro, so no American in the semifinals. But Nadal, Del Potro, and then Nishikori versus Djokovic. And Nishikori is an exciting player.
Hey, folks, there's your update on tennis. All right, buddy, have a good day.
Yeah, you too.
See you.